Hello all of you beautiful people, Jules here for Whatculture.com, and cut, yes, we're wrapping now, thank you very much guys, you can stop crying now. You can stop. What do you mean you did it for real? Why did you do? Oh no. Yeah, sometimes when trying to get the right emotion out of a scene, actors actually put themselves directly in the firing line. And sometimes it's not always good. This is Whatculture.com, and these are movie scenes more real than you think. Dodgeball, Billy Madison. Adam Sandler's much-loved comedy Billy Madison features a memorable scene where Billy takes on his pint-sized classmates in an impromptu game of dodgeball, using his superior size and strength to effortlessly wail away on these kids. It's one of the movie's most hilarious scenes, and according to director Tamra Davis, Sandler called her up the night before shooting, insisting that he actually wanted to hit the kids with the ball as hard as he could because, in his apparent words, hurting kids is funny. Remember that? That's what Adam Sandler said. Despite Davis's initial protest, she agreed on the condition that the kids must volunteer to be hit and the production must get the sign-off from their parents. Nevertheless, in a recent interview, Sandler confirmed that some of the parents weren't too thrilled about their kids getting hit full pelt by him. Many of the kids actually began crying, though Davis was able to call cut just before the waterworks flowed.
Jennifer Lawrence was legitimately high, don't look up. During Adam McKay's Netflix apocalyptic satire known as Don't Look Up, Jennifer Lawrence's Kate DiBiase, who discovers a comet heading towards the planet, is seen getting high to calm her nerves. And as revealed by Lawrence herself, she wasn't always required to do that much acting in the scenes that involve the character sharing a room with the likes of Meryl Streep's President Janie Orlean after enjoying a quick smoke. The actor and her director both openly admitted during a post-screening Q&A back in 2021 that J-Law very much got high before filming one particular scene with Streep, as her character didn't have any scripted lines, and McKay promised to not fire any unexpected improvisation his star's way. So the next time you take in a rather silent Lawrence sharing a scene with other acting royalty like Streep during the end-of-the-world black comedy, know that some of her slightly stoned stares are actually 100% authentic.
The Dragon Firework. The Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring. By this point, everybody knows that Viggo Mortensen broke his toes after kicking a metal Uruk-hai helmet during the filming of The Lord of the Rings The Two Towers, but while shooting The Fellowship of the Ring, Pippin actor Billy Boyd got quite the gnarly surprise himself. During filming for the famous scene where Pippin and Merry steal one of Gandalf's dragon fireworks on Bilbo's birthday, Boyd apparently didn't get the memo for how the scene would actually be executed, and so he had no idea that the firework would actually fire into the sky while he was in front of it, ensuring that this hilariously high-pitched terrified scream is actually completely genuine, as Boyd himself confirmed on the film's DVD commentary. The terror, as amusing as it was totally real.
A real knife was used for Tom Cruise's intense fight, Mission Impossible 2. There are certain intense moments in the Mission Impossible franchise that seem a bit too risky for even the big-screen daredevil known as Tom Cruise to attempt. Like that time Ethan Hunt came within a centimetre of losing an eye during a gripping fight on a beach in the second entry into the franchise. But this being the same Cruise who legitimately hung onto the edge of a cliff for that same Mission Impossible 2 flick, you better believe that the eyeball in question during the moment Doug Ray Scott's Sean Ambrose tried to split it with a knife belonged to him. Instead of using a CGI rubber or plastic blade, the team used a real sharp weapon and had the knife attached to an overhead bar so it could only go so far. That still didn't mean Cruise would have been safe if he'd accidentally moved a touch. The cable slipped or he let out a quick sneeze though. But he was prepared to genuinely risk it all for the sake of making this climactic showdown feel that little bit more terrifying. Job done then. Is this the most dangerous stunt that Tom Cruise has ever done? If not, then you tell me what is. Let me know in the comment section right down below.
Reagan attacks Chris, The Exorcist. William Friedkin's masterful horror classic The Exorcist is jam-packed with scenes sure to burn themselves deep into your psyche, though generally its most horrific moments were intensely rehearsed down to the finest detail. But one sequence left the actress who was playing Reagan's mother Chris with a permanent lower back injury, ensuring that the final shot scene was a good deal more brutal than anyone ever expected. After Reagan forces Chris's head into her crotch, she hurls Chris across the room, causing her to land hard on the floor. Audiences would understandably put Chris's pained response response down to just her being a magnificent actress, but in actuality the wire used to pull her back was yanked too hard, causing her back to genuinely be smashed hard onto the floor. In a more recent interview, Ellen Burstyn, who played Chris, seems at least a bit pragmatic about the whole thing, even if today such behaviour could absolutely end a filmmaker's career. She said, "Billy is one of those directors that is so dedicated to getting the shot right that I think some other considerations fall by the wayside sometimes. He's a brilliant director and I don't want to knock him, however I did injure my lower back and had to work with it ever since, but it's okay."
Ben Stiller was actually dropped getting into the ambulance. There's something about Mary. Sometimes comedy comes at a rather unexpectedly painful price. Take the moment Ben Stiller's Todd Strowman accidentally gets his privates caught in his zipper and dropped whilst being taken to hospital on a stretcher, for example. While it may seem as though this sort of excruciating moment of hilarity would have been rehearsed a number of times, before allowing the star to fall right down to earth with an almighty bang, it turns out that this Something About Mary tumble wasn't actually scripted at all. Instead of throwing away such a brilliant moment of accidental comedy though, after stopping filming to check to see if Stiller was definitely fine, the team decided the unintentional moment was too hilarious to erase and kept it in the finished article. The way the flick smoothly cuts to Cameron Diaz's worried Mary Jensen, as Ted is eventually helped back up, likely made you believe that this perfectly timed beat of physical comedy was always part of the plan. But it wasn't, and Stiller likely had the bruises to show it.
Ray farts, Rayman. Rain Man is a terrific film, absolutely jam-packed full of heartwarming moments, yet one of its most iconic scenes involved nothing more than two people in a tight space while one of them farts. When Charlie is in a phone booth with his autistic savant brother Ray, Ray suddenly breaks wind, leaving Charlie exasperated that his older brother would dare drop some gas in such a confined area. And though on paper this scene certainly wouldn't be a stretch for most actors, it wasn't actually included in the script at all, and neither Hoffman nor Cruise was actually doing much acting at all. Hoffman farted in the phone booth for real, and Cruise's frustrated reaction was both genuine and improvised in the moment, injecting some totally unnecessary yet absolutely hysterical layers of reality into the scene.
Elizabeth Olsen really snapped after being hit in the face. Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. It wasn't just those watching Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness who were left spooked by some of Elizabeth Olsen's sudden terrifying outbursts, as the star herself would admit to actually scaring her co-stars for real during one particular moment between Wanda and her children, with her sons Billy and Tommy, played by Julian Hilliard and Jet Klein respectively, launching various things at the Scarlet Witch as the boys react to her attacking their real mother. Olsen would recall to Variety that one of those props legitimately hit her in the face really hard. So the unfiltered "stop it" that erupts from Wanda in this moment came from a genuine place, and very much terrified the youngsters on the day. Despite not enjoying really screaming at the lads, and letting that very real knock on the head inform how she responded to them though, Olsen would still confess that it was certainly good for the scene, and the pair of them have probably not thrown a single toy ever since.
Ernie's Three Strikes, Kingpin. The Farrelly brothers' criminally underrated 1996 comedy Kingpin is perhaps best remembered for Bill Murray's outrageously entertaining performance as the film's villain, blowhard bowling pro Ernie Big Ern McCracken. In the film's final bowling tournament showdown between Ern and our hero Roy, Ern scores the victory after pulling off 3 strikes in a row. Viewers would understandably assume that the feat was cut together from numerous different camera setups, possibly even with a real pro bowler to stand in for Murray. In reality though, the Farrellys planned to shoot Murray bowling until he scored 3 strikes, which could then be edited together in post-production, but to their stunned surprise, his first 3 bowls were all strikes, a turkey even, and so the rapturous crowd response to the 3 strikes is actually completely genuine.
Those fish were definitely not CGI. The Hobbit, The Desolation of Smaug. Instead of once again going digital for the Desolation of Smaug scene that involves the dwarves and Bilbo Baggins being hidden in barrels to keep them from getting spotted in Lake Town, Hoary actor Adam Brown would eventually tell Metro that this moment in Peter Jackson's Hobbit trilogy was far more real than you probably thought, and he'd have liked. According to Brown, the barrel scene ended up feeling like a Bush Tucker trial due to the fact the thespian has always had a phobia of the slippery little guys, with all of the lads involved in the fishy moments being legitimately covered in fish juice from head to toe in the end. So while there were a few rubber props thrown in there just to fill out the barrels, the gang's reactions to this rather stinky scenario were no doubt influenced by the fact they were sharing these containers with some entirely real fishies.
Are you sleeping with her? Chinatown. Roman Polanski's classic neo-noir stars Jack Nicholson as Jake Gitz, a private investigator who finds him caught up in a web of conspiracy and murder, putting him at odds with the corrupt water magnate Noah Cross. When Gitz meets Cross for lunch during his investigation, Cross soon changes the subject to his daughter Evelyn, who Jake is working for. Cross asks him, "Are you sleeping with her?" Which wouldn't have been quite so awkward for Jack Nicholson were he not actually also dating the actor's actual daughter Angelica in real life at the time. To make matters worse, legend dictates that the day that this scene was filmed was also the only day that Angelica herself was on set to visit her father and partner. Oof.
Tom Cruise wasn't supposed to fall on that chair. Collateral. Much like Ben Stiller's There's Something About Mary, sudden drop was kept in the finished movie. Due to being too damn funny to lose, Michael Mann decided that man again Tom Cruise's entirely unintentional stumble in Collateral perfectly fit the film he was making. Said fall goes down as Cruise's hitman Vincent begins to chase after Jamie Foxx's Max and Jada Pinkett Smith's Annie in the latter's office building, with the actor launching a chair through a window before accidentally stepping on it and completely wiping out mid-pursuit. That pretty scary slip may not have been planned out in advance, but the director would reveal in the film's commentary that he still absolutely loved the accidental trip. So he kept the mishap in the frantic chase, making the whole thing feel slightly more truthful/chaotic.
Arch Stanton's skeleton. The good, the bad, and the ugly. In Sergio Leone's impossibly iconic western, Blondie tells Tuco that the gold that they're seeking out is located in the grave of an individual named Arch Stanton. However, when Tuco opens the grave at Sad Hill Cemetery, he finds nothing but a human skeleton, because of course Blondie lied to him about the gold's real resting place. While you'd be forgiven for assuming that the production simply used a prop skeleton from a local fancy dress store, in fact, the skeleton of Arch Stanton was really that of an actual dead person. Because Leone didn't like the look of the original prop skeleton, the set decorator actually did some scouting and found a woman living in Madrid with a skeleton for hire. The skeleton was of the woman's mother, a former actress who wished before she died that her skeleton be used in movies, allowing her acting career to continue beyond her own life. Creepy, but also weirdly touching.
Rihanna actually whacked Michael Cera in the ear. This is the end. During 2013's apocalyptic comedy This Is the End, Michael Cera awkwardly cops a feel of Rihanna's behind before eating a hell of a left hand from the Umbrella singer. And according to the slapped star himself, no movie magic was actually used to create this heavy shot to the ear/head. In a conversation with GQ about the scene, Cera would admit that he wanted Rihanna to really give him a proper shot to the face because he felt it was a lot funnier and a fake slap just doesn't look good. And Riri did not hold back. Cera recalled being hit hard and being sent flying by the megastar, but would also add that the fact his super real pain is now on film forever is great. If you ever wondered why this particular Cera strike felt like it hit a bit differently compared to some of the other big screen slaps you've seen over the years then, it's because neither performer was actually pretending when Rihanna's hand met her co-star's noggin.
You're gonna need a bigger boat. Jaws. In addition to being one of the most iconic blockbusters, and say it with me kids, of all time, Steven Spielberg's Jaws also plays host to an all-timer one-liner when Police Chief Martin Brody tells Quint, "You're gonna need a bigger boat," after his first major encounter with the shark. Yet the line didn't originate from the script. It was actually inspired by the events of the production itself. The shoot had a barge which contained all of the film's equipment and catering provisions, which was also accompanied by a smaller support boat that was clearly too minuscule to get the job done. And so "You're gonna need a bigger boat" was born, being frequently spoken amongst the film's crew. As a result, Roy here is ad-libbing the one line during the filming, much to Spielberg's annoyance. However, during the editing process, Spielberg felt that its utterance fit perfectly in one single scene, and so an indelible moment was born.
Harrison Ford dived into the middle of a real parade, The Fugitive. Though you would understandably assume that the average person would quickly recognize a movie star as famous as Harrison Ford, wandering through the middle of a real St. Patrick's Day parade, the legendary actor was actually able to legitimately go unnoticed in the thick of a completely real parade while shooting The Fugitive. That's right, during the scene that shows Dr. Richard Kimball trying to blend in with the crowd in Chicago in that 1993 classic, the filmmakers didn't create a fully choreographed fake gathering of hundreds of extras. Instead, they decided to genuinely dump Ford into the middle of an actual parade going down in real life, after director Andrew Davis got permission from the city to film in one. This surprisingly real moment involving a framed Kimball being hunted down by Tommy Lee Jones' US Marshal Sam Gerard was captured on a Steadicam, with camera operator Robert Uland wandering around the real parade and catching shots of Ford and Jones as the former attempted to keep his head down in a green hat amidst the crowd.
Laser torture, Goldfinger. Without question, one of the most unforgettable scenes in the entire James Bond canon is the famous torture sequence from Goldfinger, where the titular villain straps 007 to a metal table and threatens to slice through him crotch first no less with a red-hot industrial laser. As much as you might assume that Connery was never in any real danger and that the scene was achieved by an extremely controlled fire using special material, it was actually much more DIY than that. In reality, Guy Hamilton simply had a technician, Burt Luxford, sit underneath the table with a blowtorch which he fired along a designated line. Luxford said of shooting the scene, "I was about 3 inches away from Connery's crotch when I stopped. Sean was absolutely terrified." Still, it's preferable to Hamilton's original plan, which was to bring an actual laser to set, which was ultimately deemed far too dangerous.
Kate Dickie's hammerpeed scream was real, Prometheus. As Kate Dickie's ship medic Ford takes a closer look at what is left of Rafe Spall's Milburn midway through the Alien prequel known as Prometheus, the creepy hammerpeed that attacked him earlier in the movie suddenly darts out of his skull and scares her. And Dickie's cries of terror were 100% real, folks, with Ridley Scott demanding that no one on set tell the actor what was heading her way, and only telling her that something was likely to happen once she turned over Milburn's body. Sure enough, something did very much go down as the practical and lifelike hammerpeed was yanked out of the dummy on the ground by a wire. So not only was no CGI needed to craft this utterly shocking moment of alien horror, those stunned screams let out by Ford as the wiggly space worm flew past her head were also far more real than many equally unnerved viewers likely realized when watching this creepy scene.
Brad relieves himself. Fast Times at Ridgemont High. Fast Times at Ridgemont High will forever be remembered for its infamous pool scene in which Brad is caught pleasuring himself in the pool house by Linda, the very object of his affection. What really makes this scene is Linda's horrified reaction when she walks in on Brad tending to himself, but the awkward horror on Phoebe Cates' face is actually far more real than you'd ever expected. To ensure her reaction was genuine, Judge Reinhold allegedly brought a large dildo to the set and had it in her sightline when she entered the room, without warning her first, of course. And so that wide-mouthed cringe that she pulls, well, it's totally and utterly genuine.
Robert De Niro requested a live round in his gun, the Deer Hunter. Whilst filming one particularly tense scene during the making of Michael Cimino's The Deer Hunter, Robert De Niro's desire to add more realism to the moment actually led to him making a rather absurd request. According to the director himself, the Staff Sergeant Michael Vronsky actor felt that a scene involving the character pointing a gun at John Cazale Stanley, after getting pissed off about him messing around with it in a cabin, would work better if the pistol had an actual bullet in it. Cazale actually ended up agreeing to add that little extra authenticity to the impromptu game of Russian roulette too. Though he did understandably check the weapon before each take just to make sure the live round wasn't the next one to fire out of the chamber. And after learning exactly how shockingly real this pistol scene actually was, it's pretty much impossible to watch the moment Mike decides to play a truly dangerous game with a petrified Stanley the same way again.